We are not live, but we are alive. And today we're going to be unveiling the simple technique of watercolour flowers. Ooh, I sense some painting in the air, Mr. Gary. I sense some
Yeah.
painting. Hello, lovely Gary. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Rachel. I'm really, really good. Nice and sunny today.
Nice and sunny today to go with our lovely flowers. Well, I'm very well. Lovely YouTuber, I hope you are as well. If you like our content that we provide for you every single Friday in our tea time tutorials, we would love it if you would hit the like button. The like button used to be really boring. It's not now, Gary. When you hit it, it goes like this, and it goes rainbow colours as well. I know it's
Oh, wow.
exciting. Come on, give it a try right now. Hit it and see what happens. You
I
see,
want to
it's
do
that
it.
exciting. Seriously, if you do like our content, literally like it with a thumbs up, or you leave comments below, apparently then YouTube thinks that we're interesting. And so it starts putting our content out into the universe, and then other people see it, and then everybody can just be one happy, big collective group of people. So please do give us a like if you like what we do. So if you want to skip ahead straight away to the art technique to learn those wonderful watercolor techniques, and believe me, you will create some amazing flowers at the end of it, the time code is below. So just click on there and off you go. But if you're staying with us, we always have a little chat. So I went to the Lake District, as you know, and I was looking out of the window and saw this massive mountain and decided to climb it. And that doesn't mean I had ropes, when I was hanging off the mountain. No,
No.
I put my trainers on and did some walking. But we took the teenage daughter, who we discovered not great with heights, but she did it and she got to the top. And my goodness, she felt brilliant when she'd done it. And the husband was with me, and we all set off and climbed this mountain. And when we sort of got to the bottom of it and we looked up, we all kind of went, oh, did we get up there, Gary? Because that's a big mountain. And I just thought this is such a great metaphor for life, is that quite often we look at something in our lives that we have to either overcome, or we have to achieve, or we have to change. And sometimes those things can just seem mammoth. It could be paying off a big bill. How will I ever find that money to pay off that bill? It's £1,000. How am I going to find £1,000? It's not going to just be dropped from a letterbox, is it? No. So what you need to do is start at the very beginning of what you can do to try and make £5 on something. Could you sell something in your house, for example, that would bring you £5 or £10 in on eBay? What I'm saying is I'm trying to make it simple. There are other things. It might be, relationship issues. It's really important in any of these things to not overthink, to not over dramatize, to not look at the end result. And you start with one step. Yeah. Just one step. What say you, Mr. Gary?
Well, I can see you looking from the base of that mountain to the top and thinking, I'm never going to get there. And that's what, when we look at these tasks, like you say, it's a metaphor. It's like a thing that what you want to achieve. If you look at it from the bottom, looking up, think, I'm never going to get there. But actually the path, well, you said two things. You could climb with ropes and like climb up the sheer face of it and try and get there as quick as possible. Quite difficult. But you could take the little narrow zigzaggy path that goes zigzags all the way up, very gentle. You get halfway up, you look up, oh, it's not so far now. You look down, oh, I've got halfway. And then you carry up. Only when you get to the top, you're like, oh my God, I've got all this way up. How did I get here? And again, when you get to the bottom, you realize how far you've gone. So yeah, just any task like that. Brilliant. Yeah. I know you took some lovely photographs of those mountains in front where you were staying. And I just thought, what a lovely, lovely place to chillax out and just get your mojo, your zen, whatever it is, get it back, relax into that. Lovely.
Yeah, and I did send Gary, didn't I? I messaged you, Gary, one morning. I went for a walk and I went, just look at this. And all I sent you were pictures of water flowing, but the sounds, and it was so nice, and I knew you'd appreciate it. And on the mountain as well. Gary messaged back and said, I can hear Julie Andrews almost. And then I did actually ring you back and sang for you.
And I could have made the clothes. I could have got
Rick down
made the clothes. Rick the curtains down, his little outfit.
Oh, you should have done that. I could have seen me in those curtain dresses. I could have been spinning my guitar around on the top of that mountain. But seriously, it is about taking that one step. And I wore trainers instead of hiking boots. Ridiculous. And I did actually have my hiking boots. Yes, they are bright pink. But
They are bright pink.
yeah,
I saw them.
Anyway, right, shall we now do some lovely watercolouring? And once again, this is tying in, Gary, because when you show me often the end result of what we're going to make, I look at it and go, I can't do, Gary, look, you're an artist, my love. I can't do that. And Gary says, yes, you can, because it's simple steps. So we must give credit, first of all, to the lady who we saw this on her, because we're not, you know, we're not pretending that we're geniuses here. We come up with these ideas. Some we do, but we're inspired by the people. We always give them credit. So what was the name of the lady, Gary, that
so I've written her name down and I was really inspired. I love her. She's on Instagram and her name's Andrea.NelsonArt. And anyone out there, go and have a look at some of the other things that she does. So I was inspired by it. So I'm going to do one of her activities and yeah, check her out. So this is what Andrea did. And it's to make this sort of lovely, sort of stylized sort of burst of flower. It's a flower, a stylized flower idea, and actually it starts off really easy, so we'll break it down. So I'm going to go have a nice piece of nice sort of quality paper. Now it could be, this is sort of an all-purpose mixed media paper. You can see it's got a little bit of body to it. You know, if you haven't got access to art papers like this, you know, just use photocopy, whatever you've got at hand. It's about taking part. It's the principle of the thing that is what it's all about. You could use watercolor paper, ideally, but if you've just got some cartridge paper that's got a good quality to it, that'll be fine. Now, what else do you need? But by the side of me, I've got a Sharpie pen, or you could use a biro, a marker pen, but ideally a pen that's not going to bleed when you get it wet, because you're going to make some marks on here to start with, and then you're going to add water and some paint on the top. So if you haven't got a Sharpie pen, you might have a crayon. You might have another type of, well, biro doesn't necessarily smudge. If it smudges, just go with the smudges. You know, it could look quite really nice. So a pen, a couple of paintbrushes, or I have said, if you haven't got a sort of thick paintbrush, you could use a bit of sponge, because we're going to dab on some water, a thinner paintbrush to dab on some paint, some paint. So whatever you can get your hands on, you know, and if you can't get paint, you know, you're at home, maybe there's some food colorings in the cupboard that you could just put a paintbrush in the food colorers and dab that on. That could work quite well. I've got a couple of jars of water here, as always, one for clean water, one for dirty water, but 9 times out of 10, I get the two mixed up. So you're saying, Gary, you're putting your clean brush in the dirty water. Well, okay. Another little thing, I've got this. Now, this might give Rachel envy. This is a little spritzer. You've got it already, haven't you? A bit of so you see a lot of artists, and actually Andrea, who did this on demonstration on Instagram, she uses this as well. And I've had this for quite a while. It's a travel spritzer from the chemist. So you get a little pack, you'll get like a couple of little spritzer empty bottles, and you get one where you can put gel in. But they're great for spraying and getting like a mist. And what you do is you actually just literally put some spray on your palette of paint, and then it's already pre-wetted. Now, if you haven't got the spray, I haven't got a spray, all you need to do is just pre-wet the paint, because you want quite wet paint to dab on. But that's my little tip for today, my little spritzer that I got from the chemist, a little pack of 4, and I've been using that quite a lot on my work. I also have a bit of spare paper by the side of me just to test the colours of the paint. And the paints I'm using today are brilliant dye-based watercolours by Kohinoor, and I got them from a local supplier. So they've got quite a nice sort of like an intensity of color. Now, you might not have those paints, you could have anything, but we'll just go with it. Okay, right, Gary, stop waffling, let's get drawing. First of all, what I want you to do is I just want you, with your Sharpie pen, say from this left hand side, I just want you to draw a curve like that, just one curve, and then you're just going to do a little round dot just like that. That's it. I can see Rachel's already doing her. Then the next thing to do is almost like a sort of a firework comes starburst off of it. So just radiating lines, just start with a few just coming off from that circle. So you can just start off with that many to just get going and get that started. And then fill in a few more. So just a few more. And they could be any length like that. So there we are. So sort of like a just sort of, a bit spidery at the moment. You can do a couple of stylized leaves. So whatever you'd like to do in leaf shape. So maybe a couple of leaves coming from here. They might be a bit jagged leaves. Whatever you'd like to do down there. So whatever type of leaf that you want to do. Lovely. Okay, right. So We can leave that. We don't need the pen anymore. That's just sort of our base. So quite easy just to follow that and do that. Next, we're going to just dab on some nice clean water, and we're literally just going to pat some water with our thickish brush, or you might have a little bit of sponge, and you're just going to pat some water around that flower, just around the, well, those little, that's going to turn into a flower in a minute. You're just going to pat that around, get that round like that. Okay. If you've gone really, really wet, don't worry, because it just makes sure that the paint just slightly bleeds. So it's a nice little technique, this, to using the watercolor. So now I'm going to take the thinner brush, and I'm just going to get some nice color paint. So start with a strongish color first of all. I'm going to start with a nice strong purple, and I've got quite a lot of paint on there. And I'm just going to just dab, lots of little dabs in a sort of area off of here. So you can see as it hits the water, it just slightly starts to bleed. But I like this sort of painterly dabbing effect. So just going to dab that on. Nice little dabs. Let me just do one little area like that. That's quite nice. Okay, next. You all right with that, Rachel?
Loving it, loving it.
Good. Let's choose another color. So by purple, let's think what's, you know, because I'll try and talk about paint and color theory. So if you've got a yellow color, now the opposite on the color wheel, it's accent color. Purple and yellow accent each other. So I'm just bringing in a little bit of my color theory and a bit of artwork. And just by the side of it, we're just going to do yellow now. Just going to dab in some nice yellow in around. So hopefully, if it doesn't seem to be bleeding, you know, if it's not spreading enough and it looks like it's all going a bit sort of, it's not spreading out, not painterly enough, it might be that you haven't added enough water. So you can always go back, and if you think, oh, I need to just make that a little bit wetter, you can always add a little bit more water onto that. Okay, let's try another one. Let's do, I'm going to go completely opposite. I'm going to use another primary color, and I'm going to use a lovely blue now. But you can use whatever color you want. And the idea is that while you're doing this, you're just experimenting with colors and what works nice together, how it all works. And again, I'm just using the blue next to the yellow. And don't worry that the blue runs in to the yellow, because then that starts to create a secondary color, and that starts to create a little green in amongst it as well, which is quite nice. I quite like the way that's going, quite painterly. What haven't I used? Okay, let's try. I'm going to do a green, not a green. I'm going to use this lovely red. I've got a nice red here. And dab that in. Lots of dabbing. It's quite nice, and actually, you know, we talk about mindful artwork and just sort of exploring things. I love the way the water takes it just into like little rivulets, you know, just sort of starts to merge it a little bit.
Yeah.
What color have I got left? I'm just having a look. How's yours? That looks nice, Rachel. Lovely.
Yes. You know, and I did really, I mean, I didn't have one of those little spray things.
No.
So I just loaded up my paint with water. I didn't put a lot on there, and I've loaded up the page. And it is just working. It's working really, really well. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because before we started recording this, I was telling you about my holiday in the lakes, and I said I went to that beautiful art shop, and I could have spent an absolute fortune on brushes and paints and everything. And you know, my husband pointed out to me, because I said to him, well, you know, I wish I'd been able to have afforded all those paints and things. But he said, yeah, but that's not the point of what you do on YouTube, because the idea is that what you're doing is accessible. You know, you don't need all those things.
No.
You know, the idea is that anybody can do what you're doing with simple, because I'm just using Maddie's paints from when she was a toddler.
Exactly. Know. And you could you know, start off with those cheap little box of paints. I think with any artwork, you build up your almost like your art box as you progress, and you think, oh, I'd like to just maybe invest in a little bit more expensive paint or a better brush. But you know, you can start off with the most simplest implement. And I've, which we must do sometime, I've actually made my own paintbrushes. You know, I've taken sticks, I've actually put a bit of feather on the end of that stick, or actually wrapped around a little bit of sponge, and I've made that before, and I think, you know, that's just as good. You can find, you know, even like your old scouring pad in the kitchen, or your the sponge mop for the kitchen surfaces. You could cut them up and paint with those. So no, you don't need all this expensive equipment to do great artwork. You actually just need the enthusiasm and the you know, just maybe watching things like we're doing and just getting some inspiration, and then from the inspiration take on your own ideas. I'm just wetting the leaves at the moment. I'm just putting a little bit of wet around the leaves. I'm just going to add a little bit of green, so a little bit of a color on the leaf, just letting that blend through. Letting that. And don't worry. I think when we were growing up and we were learning to paint, during the colouring books and that, and we had to get it right to the edge, and it had to be also neat and tidy, which I used to enjoy doing, and that is another mindful practice. But with this watercolours is actually about letting the water take the colour, hence watercolours. It gets, you know, so it can become what I describe as painterly. It becomes a little bit more loose. It's not tight. It can bleed. It can smudge a little bit. I'm going to just use a little hairdryer on there just to give it a little bit of drying. So, and again, sometimes I've used a hairdryer to actually let the paint start to go off in different directions as well, which is quite a nice thing to do. There we are. Oh, Rachel, there we go.
Yeah, do you know, I've started I just added to the leaves, and I'm just enjoying playing.
It's funny you're doing that, because that's actually a technique. So a technique is to then add the color again. So you do layering with watercolor. So then you can like layer again on top of watercolor to get a darker tone, which is quite a nice thing to do. You could go back in it once it's dried and do that. The other thing you can do, I've got my new Sharpie pens are very exciting, and you could go in and just use maybe a Sharpie. I'm saying Sharpie pen, but you could use a felt tip, which is quite nice to use. And again, you could just go in and just pick out some highlights, or just do some little circles. They're very much, this design reminds me so much of hydrangeas. And at this moment, you know, we're recording this at the end of the summer, and we've got hydrangeas everywhere. I don't know if you've seen them everywhere. They're all out in the gardens, and they look absolutely lovely. They're so nice. I really enjoy.
I could just sit here and keep doing this and play for hours, and that's the point, isn't it? On you know, with what we're doing, we sort of give people a 20-minute exercise, but actually, who's to say that you don't do your mindful creativity for an hour? You know, that's the idea. Keep playing.
It's the idea, and it's funny because, you know, you actually have a little sort of think about your own concentrate. How long can you concentrate or absorb yourself into one practice? As we become more sort of involved in what we're doing, actually you can probably spend longer. But to start with, just an art practice, you know, 10 minutes to 20 minutes is probably max that you'd spend on something before you start to think, my mind's wandering on to, I must get the cooking on, or I must make that cup of tea, or, you know, the kids are going to be home soon. So, but as you get yourself much more involved, you'll find you'll be spending longer and longer actually just absorbed in the process, working into something like this and just having a little play, which is really quite nice. I'm just putting a little bit, I'm just using these little Sharpies in here. I've got my pink there. Let me just finish with my pink. Can't help myself. You have to shape with these pens. They're like felt tips, but they've got acrylic paint inside them, which actually, so the idea is that you've got acrylic paint inside, like a sort of like a felt tip in a way. You have to get them started. You have to get the paint right. Here it comes, and you have to get the paint coming through. There we go, and then you can use it. So you can then start to, because I think in some of the earlier ones I've used like a white Sharpie, which is my go-to highlighter fun thing to have. But this one, I don't know if you can see that, but this one's just a very subtle pink on there as well. Yeah, and it just gives a little bit more texture to it. So there's lots of things you can do. If you've only got 10 minutes, you can create this in 10 minutes. If you've got 20 minutes, start working into it. If you've got a half an hour, just think what you could do. Cut it out and then making more of them and have them as the decorations. Be lovely.
Exactly. It's just about playing, isn't it? There she is. Huge. The biggest flower you've ever seen.
It is. Well, that's because it is stylized hydrangea. It's got to be that big, blousy flower that's really on the show-off flower. Fab! Look at it. Really
Lovely.
nice. And I can really see on yours, the real painterly, you can really see how you've dabbed that paint on. Really nice. You're quite circular. You've really created a circle with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just enjoyed it. I just completely, as I say, I always forget that we're doing a YouTube video because I just got into it. And hopefully people will do this for much, much longer. Lovely.
Yes.
Okay. We're back in the room, Gary. Lovely. What a lovely, lovely technique. And thank you very much to Andrea as well for putting that up and making art accessible to everybody, because that's the idea. And that's what we're trying to do here on the channel, is just to get you to take some time out. And it really is important. As I said to you, Gary, I spent so long on my holiday just looking out of the window at the mountains. And, you know, it's really important to just take that time for yourself. And, you know, I could have sat there and sketched and just done some things like that, which are really good for the mind. So hopefully, lovely YouTuber, you will take some time out with us and come back to visit us every Friday, because we do load every single Friday. Right, lovely, Gary. Thank you so much. As I said, lovely YouTuber, if you could please give us a thumbs up. Ding, ding, ding. Press the button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, then you'll know that we've uploaded our content on a Friday, and then you can get down and have a play. We will see you next time, lovely YouTuber.
Bye.